For centuries, mankind believed that life existed only here on Earth. But today, many scientists agree that we are not alone. Practically every human civilization that has ever existed tells us we are not alone in the cosmos. A long, long time ago, extraterrestrials came here, and through a targeted mutation of our genes, we became human. We have in theory a worldwide civilization that has extraterrestrials interacting with it, and human beings as we are today, who are possibly the genetic offspring of these aliens. We've been visited. They have probably always been here. Millions of people around the world believe we have been visited in the past by extraterrestrial beings. But what if it were true? Did ancient aliens really help to shape our history? And if so, why did they come here, and what was their mission? On July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission reached its destination, and two men, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, actually walked on the moon. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface. Beautiful, just beautiful. It was the first time in history that beings left their home and traveled through space to another planet. Or was it? Were we really the first creatures in the universe capable of traveling to another world? Given the vastness of the universe and the billions of years it took to create our galaxy, is it so hard to imagine that such a thing might have happened before, perhaps thousands of times over the course of millions of years? The ancient astronaut theory presupposes that thousands and thousands of years ago, even before recorded history, Earth was visited by astronauts from another world. But if alien beings did in fact travel to Earth, why? Did they come to explore, to plunder, to study, to hunt, or to breed? When Armstrong and Aldrin explored their incredible surroundings, they found the moon to be a barren landscape. It seemed to offer little more than a lifeless oasis of rocks and dust. But in 1986, further testing determined that the lunar landscape actually contains a high amount of helium-3, an extremely powerful, non-polluting, non-radioactive fuel source. Experts estimate that a single space shuttle filled with this material could satisfy all the energy needs of the United States for an entire year. Think of it. Our models of spaceships mining the moon and other planets for natural resources. Could this help explain why Earth might have served as a destination for travelers from other worlds? We go out there with robot mining crews and eventually human mining crews, mine those planets, extract the ore. Ships would come, they'd take the ore and bring it back. Well, if we would do it, why wouldn't extraterrestrials? But if alien excavators did come to Earth, perhaps thousands of years ago, wouldn't there be evidence? Here, in what is now known as Iraq, lies what is commonly regarded by historians and archaeologists as the cradle of civilization. Between 3500 and 1900 BC, the fertile area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was the home of the Sumerian people. The Sumerians were one of the first cultures that built actual cities with streets and a street grid, almost like New York City, where you have a square street layout. They invented cobblestones, they had a sewage system, they were advanced in agriculture. The Sumerians also invented the first known writing system by using cuneiform script on clay tablets. In the 19th century, archaeologists exploring the ancient ruins of Nineveh discovered 22,000 of these clay tablets. When they were later translated, the texts described many stories similar to those found in the Judeo-Christian Bible. Virtually every story that's in Genesis, the flood, the story of Adam and Eve, they all have precedence with the ancient Sumerians. In 1976, author Zecharia Sitchin published his own translations of the Sumerian texts in a series of books called the Earth Chronicles. According to Sitchin, the clay tablets describe an alien race known as the Anunnaki, who came to Earth to mine gold. Zecharia Sitchin has essentially suggested that the reason we were visited in the remote past is because the ancient astronauts' home planet needed gold for their atmosphere, and their gold content was depleting. So they came to Earth to mine gold and bring it back to their home planet. But why gold? What are the unique properties of this precious metal that might make it important and worth traveling through the galaxy for? For extraterrestrials, gold would be an important resource, just like it is for us, if their society is at all like ours. One of the major things it's built on is electricity. Gold is one of the top conductors, and its malleability and ability to be made into wires, used in really small forms as nanoparticles, make it an incredible technological resource for any life forms that reach a level of dealing with electricity and technology as we do. One of the exciting directions is possibly as an energy source through properties called thermoelectric effects, where it can take heat and turn it directly into electricity. This would be a very nice, clean energy source. With its capacity to create energy and conduct heat, some scientists believe gold may also be an invaluable asset in the construction of spaceships. Gold actually reflects infrared light. Infrared is basically light that's not quite red, so you don't see it, but we interact with it as heat. The radiation will interact with your molecules and make them vibrate faster, and you'll feel that as heat. So it makes a great heat shield, partly because it's so malleable. You can make it very thin. It's easy to work with, and it has great properties for reflecting heat. The only metal that really lasts is gold. Gold is indestructible. All gold from ancient times still exists today. If you look at Zecharia Sitchin's theories, that ETs came down from another planet in our solar system, which is on a 3,600-year elliptical orbit, they were running out of minerals and gold specifically, and they somehow needed to line their atmosphere with it. These extraterrestrials first measured our planet and had the instruments to find out where on this planet to find raw material. Through their incredible equipment, they found a planet that has gold, so they decided to go there and mine. So they sent some expeditions to planet Earth. Suddenly they get here, and the factions begin to say, well, there's a lot of gold here, but we're not digging it out. What are we going to do? We need workers. The story that came down to the Sumerians is that the Anunnaki were mining gold on Earth, and the run-of-the-mill workers complained that this is really hard work and they're tired. They don't want to do this anymore. So they had a big council and decided to create a primitive worker called an Adamu. So they look at what is on this planet, and that is Homo erectus, and they say, well, they're not very intelligent, and they're not going to listen to us, so we're going to genetically alter them. The Anunnaki created humans as a slave species. According to Zecharia Sitchin, the Adamu were the first modern humans. They were created by the Anunnaki 450,000 years ago when they genetically mixed their DNA with that of prehistoric man. They took one cell of an ancestor of ours, changed the cell by an artificial mutation, changed the DNA code, what our geneticists are doing every day. It's carved in their stone. This is not something made up. This is part of the Sumerian history. They believed that the gods came down and created them, and they were their slave species. They knew that, and they didn't have any philosophical beliefs about the purpose of man or anything. If you believe Sitchin's theory, that mankind was created by ETs for slave labor, all of a sudden it makes sense. And then when you look at the biblical terms of what may have happened, Adam and Eve, sure, they may have been two individuals back a long time ago at the beginning of time, but perhaps Adam and Eve were the first of the genetically created human beings. Closer comparisons between the Hebrew Bible and the Sumerian texts reveal many similarities, not only in their stories, but also in their language. Adam is Hebrew for man. Adamu is what the Sumerians refer to as first man, the Anunnaki's slaves. But do the Sumerian tablets actually describe an alien race? A race that conducted mining operations on a global scale? Thousands of miles away, on the African continent, ruins of ancient gold mines have recently been discovered. The largest concentration can be found in South Africa, where some excavations, according to scientists, date back some 150,000 years. These are in areas that have an abundance of gold right now, so it's very possible that they could have mined it. Now the big question is, how do we know they weren't human beings that simply did that? Why the ET theory? In many languages in Africa, the native word for star means bringer of knowledge, or enlightenment. Some African cultures believe that extraterrestrial beings have been visiting the Earth for tens of thousands of years. Zulu legends speak of a time when visitors from the stars came to excavate gold and other natural resources. These mines were worked by artificially produced, flesh and blood slaves created by the first people. Some ancient mines in southern Africa are thought to be 100,000 years old or older. If humans weren't doing that mining 100,000 years ago and making metals, then we would have to assume extraterrestrials did it. To believers of ancient astronaut theory, Alien slave mines and genetically engineered humans are not far-fetched fantasies or fairy tales, but facts. They point to additional evidence of alien mining half a world away on the American continent. Peru has long been known as the land of gold. In ancient times, Incan rulers adorned themselves with it, and when the Spanish explorers arrived in the 16th century, they sent shiploads of their plunder back home to Spain. Gold was largely a valuable commodity because of its rarity and ease in making jewelry and coinage. The ancient Incas used gold as a status symbol. Many cultures thought it came directly from the gods. People thought gold was so pure, so wonderful, it must heal, and they would occasionally ingest pure gold. Certainly, we're discovering more and more as we get better at archaeology and as we can look into these things. Applications people have used. For instance, there is some evidence that ancient people had very primitive batteries, and this would be a place in which gold would be very useful because of its electrical properties and conductivity. It should not be surprising, then, to find archaeological evidence of ancient gold mines, but some sites have recently been discovered that date back some 50,000 years. Throughout areas in Peru, you see remnants of what could have been ancient mining operations. They're there. They go down, in some cases, thousands of feet deep. Gold turns out to be surprisingly easy to mine for, even though it's relatively rare. There are a lot of common techniques ancient people used, and some of them were used well into recent times. A lot of it involves using water, often to change the properties of the rock around it. A lot of heating and freezing, and the gold will come loose. In addition to gold, other ancient sites in Peru provide evidence that they were once mined for quartz, hematite, and red ochre. They're used for different things. Quartz is incredibly common. It's basically silicon dioxide. It's kind of like glass. It's a great mineral. It's hard but can be formed into pretty sculptures. You can make quartz statues. You could probably even use it for money before you discovered metals and gold. Hematite and ochre are much more valuable because of their iron oxides, and particularly ochre is important as a pigment. As soon as you're going to start having painting, cave drawings even, or any sort of artwork, you need to make colors, and making color can be a challenge. Ochre is a great source of that. Also located in Peru are the world-famous Nazca lines. While the origins of these ancient geoglyphs remain a mystery, the area in which the lines are located suggests that a major excavation took place there, perhaps hundreds of centuries ago. At Nazca, entire mountaintops have been removed. This all requires machining, and I'm not talking about a little wheelbarrow and a pick. I'm talking sophisticated machinery, because we today would also need sophisticated machinery to achieve such feats. Could the vast flat plain located in the Nazca Desert be evidence of a gigantic mining operation, one that took place hundreds of thousands of years ago? Whoever comes here in a spaceship, Nazca would be like a beacon, as in, come here. Because the moment you come to Nazca, you're confronted with a cliff note to planet Earth, where you have all sorts of raw materials that exist in that one particular spot in very abundant quantities. I think the Nazca lines aren't evidence of a search for gold, but they're evidence of some communication with possibly ETs or gods from above. But despite the controversy, one thing is certain. The plain and the lines that scar the surrounding countryside are not natural formations. While scientists and ancient astronaut theorists remain divided about who or what created the Nazca lines, they agree on one thing: the so-called band of holes located in the Pisco Valley is a complete mystery. In the mountains of Peru, we have what's commonly referred to as the band of holes. This band consists of holes carved or dug into the mountainside, a bunch of little shallow holes dug into the ground, and it's had all kinds of explanations. Some people say it was just pot hunters looting, looking for burials. Some think it looks like some kind of machine was running over the territory. Others think it was some kind of systematic mining operation. They need raw material, be it gold, silver, uranium, whatever. They need something, and they send something down like a shuttle. It can be a robot. No extraterrestrial is on board, and this robot just crisscrosses over the surface, collects and measures raw material, and disappears again. The holes run about 3 feet apart, measure 6 to 7 feet in depth, and number in the thousands. Often we see regular structures like that, and we assume either a person or intelligent life had to make it. There are lots of examples in nature where natural processes lead to large-scale pattern formation. You see it on a small scale in animals. You look at leopards and zebras. Leopards have spots, zebras have stripes. Surprisingly, on a geological scale, some of the same processes that give you spots on a leopard could give you indentations in the ground and raised areas that would look like holes. It would take a long time over geological scales, but we've had a long time, and that might be what they're left over from. Mainstream archaeologists suggest the holes were used to store grain, but ancient astronaut theorists reject that notion. It's a mystery because who, in their right mind, would go ahead and dig all these holes? For what purpose? The other intriguing aspect about the band of holes is that you can only see it from the air. When you stand down there, all you see is a couple of holes dug into the ground, and it doesn't really mean much. But if you're up in the air, there is this long band with these individual holes that you can see, and you can conceivably create some type of message that can only be seen from the air. But if ancient aliens came here searching for gold, why did they leave? More gold still exists here, as do many other valuable minerals. Could it be that ancient mining operations were just the means to another, possibly greater end? Or perhaps the real alien mission on Earth was to hunt the greatest prey in the universe, man.